Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh episode of GTF. My name is Aldo Gandia, and before I bring Greg in, I want to let you know that over on our Patreon.com page, we have exclusive scouting reports from Greg and Danny Shimon. We've got well over 100. I think the last count was 140 or something like that, 150. And so I want to give you a snippet of one of the reports. This is Greg on Yaya Diaby.
This season came on as a pass rusher. The more I watch, the more I like him. Lines up inside and outside, right side, left side, up and down. He's strong. He can set the edge and plays contained really well. Good natural pass rusher, but still raw. Sometimes he tries too many moves. And now I'm watching and I go, just fucking go. Some pro coaching will do this guy wonders. Wouldn't shock me to see him go in the third round. I'd rather have him in the fourth because he's like a one-year wonder. But, you know, pass rushers always go higher if they got talent than, and when you got that kind of speed, 4.51 and jumping ability, you know, he'll probably come off the board pretty quick.
That's Greg on Yaya Diaby, and you can get 99 other scouting reports from Greg and about 50 or so from Danny Shimon. All you got to do is go to patreon.com, barroom draft. It's $10, and it would really be beneficial to all of us. Let me bring in Greg now. Greg, Gabriel, how are you, my friend?
Good morning.
How are things? 24, 26 hours? No, 36 hours or so before the draft.
Boring. No. No, today is, you know, my experience anyway. You're maybe one final meeting to make sure everybody's on the same page and just say, hey, we already decided this is the guy we want first. If he's gone, then we go to this guy. If he's gone, then we go to this guy. Does anybody want to change their mind? You know, just, you know, it's like a wedding. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the time today is you're calling potential free agents, you know, undrafted free agents. You doing that? I always had a routine. I got the hell out of the office at between 5 and 5:30. Met my wife and stepson for dinner. Went to I'm superstitious. Same restaurant every year. I wore for like 4 straight years pretty much the same outfit, and because I'm just so freaking superstitious when it came to that stuff. Then I said, screw it. But I always been out to dinner with my wife the night before. Got to bed early. Sat down. You know, it used to be we started the draft earlier. It wasn't until 2010 that they went to this 3-day format. And 2 of the days are at night. Before it was Saturday and Sunday. So, you know, I'd get into the office about 7:30. And the first thing I do, I get my workout stuff in and I do 1 hour of cardio. Couldn't be 59 minutes. It couldn't be 61. It had to be 60 on the button. And that goes way back, even when I was working with the Giants and when I could run before my knees got shot, you know, I'd go for a 60-minute run. And if I was a half a mile away from the hotel when I hit 60, then just walk the rest of the way. But it was just little superstition things like that. Then I'd go into the office. Now you're probably not going to have your guys come in till 2 or 3 o'clock because you're not starting till 7, you know, maybe even 4 o'clock. The work's done. And again, you're just maybe going through the scenario one more time because you've rehearsed it 1,000 times, and then make calls. The GM is making pertinent calls. The scouts are calling potential UDFAs and recruiting them. You can't never stop recruiting the UDFAs because they're going to, obviously the signing bonus matters, but if you can sell them on what you have in store for them and what the plan is, that sometimes they'll take a little less than signing bonus to go to that team because you showed them a little bit more love.
Yesterday, Ian Cunningham met with the media instead of Ryan Poles. And as I learned yesterday, there is no obligation for the general manager to come out or anyone from the team to come out and meet the media. It's a courtesy to the media. And typically, as you've told me many times, they don't say anything. It's just word salad.
Really, for the life of me, I don't know why they do it.
Yeah.
What do you think? We're going to tell you something? I mean, you're not going to say a damn thing. So It's very canned, straightforward answers, except for John Butler. And I've said this 1,000 times. John Butler, God rest his soul. He'd say, yeah, we're taking Thurman Thomas. And sure you are. And then the next day, go take Thurman Thomas. I mean, he got away with it, and nobody ever believed him.
My good friend Berlissimo has the very first question. He says, Greg, based on what you've seen, what you know of Getsy and Flus's schemes, which players do you stay at 9 for? Who are you happier to take after a beneficial trade down, if possible, in round 1? It's a good question from Berlissimo.
Yeah, it's a hard answer. First of all, nobody can sit here and tell me who's there and who got picked because none of us know. Then we're playing fantasy football. I think this, and maybe this, I don't know anything about the character of any of these players other than Jalen Carter, and I don't know much about him. I mean, just what's been out there. I haven't made a school call. I haven't been privy to that information. And so teams make information on what they find out about players. And we've talked about this. It's not only their personal character, it's their football character. It's depending on the position they play, the intelligence for the position. Can they learn and retain quickly? Are they workaholics? Are they going to have that drive to be the best player they can be? They want to be perennial all-pro types. Are they just satisfied making a team and making some dollars for a few years? So you got to get the answers to all that stuff. So we can sit here and the Bears or somebody else could take player A and you're going, why the hell did they take him when that guy was available? Well, guess what? It's because they had a lot more information than we have and they liked him better. So, and that's the way they do it. They're not going to take a player to please you. They're taking a player to please themselves. And they put a lot of work. The man hours that have gone into a draft, they start working on next year's draft like next week. It's not like you put it off for 4 months and then you start.
Right.
You start right away. And when I was working with Jerry, you started the day after the draft because you always had to outdo him. Because he was a filmaholic, and so he'd walk in, hey, big dog, who are you watching today? The draft just got over yesterday. Oh, I know, but we got another one in a year. And so, I'm not kidding either. I'm telling the honest truth. So,
that is hilarious.
I should have put a lock on my door. What I should have done.
Indeed. Berlissimo has some players that he says he would really want on the Bears. So he's got offensive tackle Darnell Wright. There's been a growing surge of Darnell Wright lovers that I've noticed on social medias. He loves the 3-tech Adetomiwa Adebawore. The defensive end Derek Hall, center Luke Whippler from Ohio State, and guard Emil Ikiyor. Also, tight end Luke Schumacher. I don't have a problem with any one of those, although I do have to tell you, Emil, the guard, I haven't really studied him at all.
No, I haven't studied him. I mean, there's guys I'm going to take in front of Wright.
Mm-hmm.
If Johnson's there, I'm taking him. If Jones is there, I'm taking him, and I might take Jones over Johnson. And I did my mock draft. Reason being, again, now that could change. If I had all the character information, I could change my mind on that in a minute. Know what's going on upstairs, and but just watching the play, I think Jones is a little better athlete, and he is a nasty son of a bitch. And so, I just, the only thing is with Paris Jones, you can put him at right tackle, plug and play right away. And because he's played a full season on the right side, be it guard, but so what? It's still playing out of a right-hand stance. Where Jones played, I think as a redshirt freshman, he practiced some at right tackle. Best of my knowledge, he's got no game reps at right tackle. Strictly left tackle. He was a starter for a year and a half.
Great
his freshman year. They're both third year guys. They're young guys.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my personal opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd go to Wright, because Wright, Johnson can play on the left side. With Jones, I'd probably keep him on the left side and put Braxton Jones, so we'd have two BR Joneses at the tackle position. And then Wright would be my third choice because he's a right tackle only. Yeah, he played left tackle a year ago at Tennessee, but he's not a left tackle in the NFL. He's a right tackle. If it's me, and he's probably already been told this by the Bears when he came in on the visit, they probably put him in the bod pod, got his body fat, and say, you're at X percentage. This is where we're going to want you at when you report at camp. So we'll tell you right now. So we draft you. You can start working on it now. Mm-hmm. And they'll have an assigned weight and an assigned body fat. Now the most important thing is the body fat. You can be over on the weight, but if you're good on the body fat, they're fine. It's all about the your lean muscle and percentage of body fat. So I think he needs to get a little lighter. He was 333 at the combine. He ran like a 501 or a 502 at 333.
Amazing. Yeah.
Ran good, but it's not just running in a straight line. It's being able to change direction, bend your knees, adjust on the move, hit a defensive back in the open field in the run game. And that's what they ask these guys to do. That's why athleticism is so important for a tackle. So wouldn't shock me if they said, we want you at 318 or 320, not 33. And, for a guy that big, hell, that shouldn't be that hard. That's, a good dumping, he loses 5. So, I mean,
gosh, I wish I had one of those.
It's not like, you or I trying to lose 10, and I shouldn't put me in there because I can lose 10 in a heartbeat.
Yeah, true. Sam Rush has an interesting question based on Ian's press conference yesterday. Ian Cunningham said that the Bears don't place round value on players, then said that late in the draft, they look at the board horizontally, the later rounds. And Sam is guessing that means positions. Then what are the verticals? How would the board be verticals? Can you explain the difference between the horizontal and vertical?
Well, all it is there are systems, and I worked in one when I was a consultant for Philly for 1 year, that they have a round-based system. So the grades start, like if you were giving the guy a first-round grade, the grade started with a 1.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're giving them a fourth-round grade, it started with a 4. And you know what? Reality is grading systems don't mean a damn thing. It's all about lining them up correctly. And we use the system where, we've talked about it before. We had a number grade, but it was preceded by a letter, A, B, C, or D. And a player that had an A grade, and then it'd be stacked by the number grade, but the A grade meant that he was a guy that was worthy of being drafted in the first 2 rounds. Okay. And then a B grade was 3 and 4. A C grade was 5, 6, and 7. And a D was an undrafted free agent. You were not under any circumstances drafting a D player. Now, in theory, you're hoping that depending on where you're picking in the 3rd round, you're hoping that you get an A player in the 3rd round. And you're hoping that you get a B player in the 5th round. Mm-hmm. So because everybody's board's different. And you might get real lucky and get a B player in the 6th round. And, I've seen that happen. So everybody's board's different. And for the people that think that scheme fit is crazy, it's all about scheme fit. And some guys are graded higher than others because they are scheme fits. And they can come in and play within your system. So in the league, I think as we get going year after year after year, the league becomes more of a scheme fit. You hear people talk about, in fact, Brandon Bean, I listened to his pre-draft presser last week. And I felt like I wish I could have recorded this and played it, because that's all he talked about was, hey, our board's going to be set this way. And why is it going to be set this way? Because it's guys that we know can play for us, can line up and do the things we want. He goes, some of these guys aren't going to be on other boards. We know that. And some of their guys aren't going to be on our board. We know that too. So he really did a very, very good job of explaining that it's really all about scheme. You're not going to draft guys that can't play within your system. Just doesn't work.
All right. I love a show like this when people are firing questions and I can just relay them to you. Mr. Shorty wants to know about your thoughts on Darnell Washington, the tight end, who is an athletic freak. His pass catching numbers are not very impressive, but it could all be because of the way he was used down at Georgia. Your thoughts on Darnell?
Well, they had he was their Y for all intents and purposes. And the other guy will be in next year's draft was the move tight end. You can call him an H, call him an F, call him whatever you want. And that guy was the pass receiving tight end. Washington is a freak. I thought until yesterday that he might be able to go to the 1st round. And I had, in making calls yesterday and talking to people, I had a couple different people say, not the brightest light in the room. And so now, is that going to mean anything? It really depends on how complex your system is. So again, one team might have him higher than another team. You look at the freak talent, the natural talent, as big as he is, as strong as he is, he can block like a son of a gun. And his athleticism, I mean, if this guy, maybe it takes him a little extra time to be exactly what you want him to be. But when he gets there, look out. He's going to be an awesome player.
Bellissimo says that Darnell also has a foot issue that's taking longer to heal. I have not heard that.
With Washington?
Yeah, Darnell Washington.
I haven't heard that at all, and I am waiting for a list. I thought I'd have it by now, but I don't. It's getting emailed to me with names. I do know that Tyree Wilson is fine.
Okay.
And foot specialists who have seen him all say not a problem. He'll be fine. So I expect him to go number 2 from everything I hear. And the word on the street is, and from people that know what they're talking about, is that Arizona wants out 3 in the worst way, but they know they might not be able to get out of 3. And if they're stuck at 3, they're taking Paris Johnson. So, he's going a lot higher. And how does that relate to what the Bears do? And this is what I think, and, I could be totally wrong because it's still going to depend on who's there when they actually pick. Mm-hmm. But I think that it could affect their ability or their thinking about trading down. Now, if they're going in saying, we got to get a tackle, and so I got to do it early to get a guy I know can plug and play, then, it could be risky to trade down unless it's only a couple spots. So, and I don't, we know they like Wright. I don't know if they like Anton Harrison because he would be the next guy, in my opinion. But I don't know how they feel about him. If they, they like him as much as I do, and we're never going to know the answer to that unless they take him. So I think the only way is if they let's use the Pittsburgh example where you get 32 back, or you might get 32 back. If you get if you trade down and you got, by the pick you get, know that you can get a tackle with that pick, and you got your board set. Hey, this guy can come in and play. This guy can come in and play. This guy can come in and play. And they're going to know the guys that, just might be, guys like Dwan Jones, real good player, but he can't play within the scheme. So it's really how their board's set, where the picks are, or the pick is that they pick up on a trade down, and what they think they can get with that pick. Remember, I've talked about it. It's all about the package.
Yes.
Are we better off with, okay, we're walking away from, let's say, Johnson's gone, so they go with Jones. We're walking away from Jones, but we're going to get this player with the trade down pick, and it probably won't be a tackle unless Wright falls a little bit. Then we can get this defensive player with us earlier too. Are we better off?
Right.
And so that's how these things go. And they've already had these discussions. Now they're not going to get, as far as, they might have gotten some inquiries, but they haven't been serious yet. As far, and in fact, another GM presser was John Snyder. And John says, phone calls don't mean anything until Tuesday and Wednesday, and then, and we're Wednesday, but you still don't get into exact parameters because, unless you're going to trade the pick regardless, because most teams trade up for a particular player. Now, a team would do it earlier because they want to be in a certain area. They're not doing it for a player. They're doing it for a group of players. And they know they got to be in that area. So they could do that trade today, say, but in most cases, Bears got the 9th pick, and around the 6th pick, the phone starts ringing. And you're going to start hey, you guys still interested in moving? We want your pick. Blah, blah. And now you might get 3 teams. And so now you're trying to figure out what's the best package. And that's why teams will start calling around 6, because, you're only going to have, like total of, say, 20, 25 minutes to figure it all out. And sometimes you need that much time.
Fascinating stuff. Okay. Jake. Jake has an interesting question here. He wants some player comps, some NFL comps on offensive linemen. So who would you compare Paris Johnson with in the NFL? Any thoughts off the top of your head?
Well, I'm not a big comp guy, but Paris Johnson, never really thought of a guy. I kind of compared, but Johnson's better. That if Johnson and Jones are the first 2 tackles off the board, then Jones would be like Kwanu last year.
Okay.
Similar size, similar athleticism. And I watched tape back to back to see, and it's like, yeah, they're really similar. And Parrish would be more like Neal, but he's not as he's a better athlete. Remember Neal from Alabama that the Giants took in the first round?
Absolutely. Evan Neal.
So, yeah, but Parrish is a better athlete. He's not as massive as Neal is, but a good player. I like them both. I think it's hard to find a comp. I'd have to go through, who's 6'6", 36-inch arms. Those, that's great arm length.
Oh my God.
Who's sitting like that in the league? How many guys? They're not too many.
Yeah.
I stick right now with. There's a guy a long time ago was big like that, but I don't even know. And he had a good career. I think it was a right tackle, Flozell Adams from Michigan State.
Sure.
That might be a guy that'd be a similar guy to Parrish Johnson.
Okay. Michael Henneman wants to know, what is the number of starters we should expect out of our 10 draft picks? And I'll also add to that. Do you guys, when you go into a draft, do you set a target? Do you set a goal? Guys, let's walk out of this draft with 4 starters or 3 starters, or you just draft it? You're
drafting the best players. Best player available is a myth because, and I think we've talked about this, it's every board's different. So it's best player available according to who?
Exactly.
Mel Kiper?
Please no.
DJ? Is it one of those guys? Because the teams aren't telling you what their board looks like. And you could be picking, the Bears are picking at 53. And who the best player is, there could be 15 different names across the league as who's the best player at that time across the board. So again, best player according to who? It doesn't exist. So it's best player according to your board, but if you got players at the same grade and you're not dropping talent quality, then you fill the need. If they're graded the same, theoretically they're the same player. They got the same talent level. So you can lean towards filling a need spot. But if there's a gap, say one guy's a 6'8" and the other guys are 6'7s, well, the guy's a 6'8" for a reason. So you better take him. You got together and you put the grade on him, and that was that. But a lot of times, you go in as part of these meetings over the last few weeks, you go in with, wait, I'd like to get this guy in the first. I'd like to get these 2 guys in the second. I'd like to get this guy in the third. You've got guys that you're kind of zeroing in on. It doesn't always work, and then you got backups for them. Okay, if he's not here, I'm going here. And that's all part of your planning process. But now get back to the starter thing. It's okay. It's an incomplete question. Starter when?
Oh, okay.
Starter is the rookie.
Yeah.
That's if you've got a bunch of guys coming in starting for a rookie, you got a really shitty football team. Okay, so and that's, they're winning by default, and in the long run, it's going to pay off. So the better way to word that question is starter quality. Because there's going to be some teams that he can walk in and start for, and there's going to be other teams that he's going to have to wait his place because there's already a pretty damn good starter there. So you really look at it 3 years down the road, beginning their second year, because there's a huge jump from the rookie year to their second year.
Right.
But then they really hit a comfort level by their third year. And so that's, if you get into your third year, you got 4 starters out of that draft, you had a hell of a draft.
Yeah, and Berlissimo points out we had a lot of rookie starters last year, and it's true because that was what Poles' plan to play a lot of young players. I mean, they said
Right.
that at the opening press conference, not afraid to start players, rookies.
Right. And where were the Bears picking at this draft up to a few weeks ago? First, they had a shitty team too. So let's be honest about it. So it's really eventual starters and not starters. And so to say at the end of year one that you might not have had a good draft, but at the end of year two it looks totally different than year one. And I'll tell you, my pet peeve, the one thing I hate, Sunday or Monday, we're going to start seeing all these articles with draft grades. Total garbage.
Yes, I have to agree.
I mean, it's a waste of time even reading it because they mean nothing.
Yes.
There's so many times I've read that, why'd they take this guy, blah, 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 and the guy turned out being a great player for the team.
Yes, indeed.
You know what? The teams know what the hell they're doing.
Right. It's like a teacher handing out final grades on the first day of school. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean,
silly.
Let them play. Like at the end of the first day of free agency, there was like 4 or 5 articles right away. Who won free agency? Well, who the hell knows? They haven't played yet.
Yeah, indeed.
When they start playing, we'll know who won.
Jimmy Tony wants to know about Will McDonald. He thinks that McDonald is going to go higher than the media is predicting. And I'm guessing the media reports that he's seen are the same as I've seen, like middle of the second round. What do you think? Is McDonald going to make it into the first round?
He could. He's in that group I call 20 to 40 guys, where you're not shocked if he goes 22nd. You're not shocked if he goes 38th. Because you got a group of guys and again, scheme fit and things of that nature are going to play into it. And his size, what teams are picking, he's not going to be a good fit for everybody because he's lacks bulk.
Right.
He doesn't lack strength, but he lacks bulk. And then the third part of that is, the strength coaches get a good look at these guys. When they're getting weighed, measured, they're there. When they're lifting, they're there. You bring them in on a visit or whatever, you're spending some time with them. You're getting a good feeling on, okay, look at, he's 238 now. I think I can get him to 45 by the beginning of the season, and hopefully he holds it. And then by year 2, I can get him to 50, and he may max out at 250 or something like that. But that's part of the job of a strength coach is doing that, and it's really invaluable information because you're not just looking at him today, you're looking at what's he going to be next year and what's he going to be the year after, assuming that he buys into your program and he does the right thing. Indeed.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. Sam Rush.
But an answer, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes if he goes 23, 25, 28, wouldn't shock me. And if he doesn't go to around 40, it wouldn't surprise me. He's getting that group of players that, how they fall is going to be dependent on how each team looks at it.
Yeah. Danny Shimon says he wouldn't be surprised if McDonald goes in the middle of the first round, 15, 16 or so.
Well, I think that's a little high, but,
I thought the same thing.
Yeah. But the guy's a good football player. He's just small.
Yeah, he is very small. All right. Sam wants to know, are there any players that the Bears could trade for a mid-round pick, maybe even a late-round pick? Any players we could use to trade for in a situation?
Very seldom is that done.
Mm-hmm.
And one reason being because the trade's not official until you pass the physical, and how the hell is he going to pass the physical?
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're really buying into what you think he is, because if you get a problem there and you've already made the trade and they trade away player A and he goes to the Tennessee Titans and Tennessee gives you a pick and you make the pick. And now he goes there and he flunks a physical. What are you going to do? I mean, you owe him a pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's hard to do. Can it happen? Yeah, it can happen. It's hard to do. What sometimes is more likely, and more so after day 2 than day 1, is depending on what happens in those first 2 days. I might say, okay, well, I was hoping we get here, here, and here, but we only got here and here, and we didn't get this one. And there's a free agent you still like, and boom, you get that deal done.
Yeah. Do you
think they wait till, and sometimes the players want to wait too, because then they know what the competition is. So you wait until the draft and then go. But we sign players right after or in the middle of the draft. Christian Peters we signed during the draft. Mm-hmm. Remember that? It's because we were waited until. I don't remember the exact year that was and who we took, but we were holding off until if to see if we could get a certain player, and it didn't fall that way. We ended up signing him, and he was a decent player for us.
Bellissimo, it's got an interesting scenario here. He informs us that Chase Young's 5th-year option was declined today. That's usually a sign that maybe the Commanders are open for trade bids. Bellissimo goes on, if they said we will offer Chase Young and picks for the 9th overall, you're making the decision, Greg, what picks would you send to the Commanders in exchange for Chase Young?
I'm not making the trade. He's coming off a really serious injury. He's missed a lot of the last 2 years. And I just read something earlier today that he had a very complicated surgery. Until I got my doctors looking at him and give me a prognosis, I'm not making a trade. And I don't think that would. I'd be shocked. Knowing he's going to get traded, if he gets traded at the trade deadline.
Okay.
It could get traded late in camp, but I would, depending on what they do in the draft. But if they're not picking up the 5th-year option, I tell you, it was the 2nd pick in the draft. His contract right now is not cheap.
That's right.
And so you can look it up if you want. And but they have to do the 5th-year option, I think, by Tuesday. So you could theoretically make a trade for him on Monday and pick up the 5th-year option. But again, how can you do that knowing that not knowing what's going on side with that leg? And to me, that's you love the talent, especially the way he was early in the year. But there's a problem now. Until you got the answer to the problem, you can't do anything.
Okay. Kenny wants to know, do you think the Bears are targeting a right tackle, or do you possibly think that they could be targeting a left tackle with the idea of moving Braxton to the right side?
Well, I think if you took Jones from Georgia, you're keeping him on the left side. I think if you took Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, you're keeping him on the left side, and you're moving Braxton to the right. Now, could it work the other way around? Sure, it could. And that's what they do. And, these guys can report 2 weeks from Monday, next Monday, as being, they have a mini camp. I think they're having the mini camp next weekend. And then the following weekend, they come back in, and their first official day of the off-season program is that Monday. And, at that point, you can do things with them. You can experiment because you're going to have OTAs. Well, first you're going to have off-season practices, which you can't go offense against defense, but you can go team. So you can go offense and defense, against air, but you can work it around and play one on the right, one on the left, and the next day flip-flop and find out who's the most comfortable where, and then go that way.
Let's bypass draft talk just for a couple of questions. George says, "Isn't it funny that the Packers are paying Aaron Rodgers $48 million this year to not play?" And I'll add, what are your thoughts about the trade of Aaron Rodgers to the Jets?
Much as I hate to say it, I thought the Packers won the trade.
Really? Tell me why.
Getting a 1 next year, because all he's got to. The only way they don't get a 1 and it's a 2 is if he doesn't play 65% of the plays.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he doesn't play 65% of the plays unless he has to get hurt for that not to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he can miss 2 or 3 games and still hit that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it has to be a pretty serious injury. I think for a guy 39 years old, the Jets gave up a lot. Now, the flip 15-13, that means nothing. And there's another flip later in the draft. When you get that late in the draft, a lot of times it means nothing. You could end up with, because boards are different, you could end up with the same player. So the biggest thing is, they gave up the 2 this year, which I always thought they were going to give up a 2 this year. And they had the back-to-back 2s, and they gave them the early one. That doesn't really matter for the Jets. I think they'll get the same guy that, with that second 2. But having to give up a 1, and he might not even be here next year. He could say, I'm done. Who knows? I would have had something tied into it as far as, they had a 65% play time, but 65% play time, and he's coming back.
Mm-hmm. I got to tell you, I think the Jets made a big mistake in trading for that guy. He's no longer a leader. He's no longer invested in football the way he was. He's got ego issues, and the guy is doing psychotropic drugs like ayahuasca. Why would you want somebody like that?
Well, I know he was. I don't know if he still is.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust him.
The only thing that I'll say about that is that going to a new team could rekindle his energy a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's true.
Give him, just add some excitement to his life, because it's a new place. Got a couple people that he knows, but he's going to be familiar with the system, but everything else is new. He's going to be in New York. Hey, I had the smallest market in the league to get 10 with. Now I got the second biggest, and so that's going to be a whole different thing for him, and that could extend his career too. He could like that situation.
Yeah,
especially with the ego he has.
Very true. He's never been one to be lacking in promotions, but he is going to the advertising agency city of the world, so
right.
he could see tons of more money with all the endorsement deals. So we'll see if that spurs him on.
But the only thing is that right away now they expect nothing less than a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
that ain't happening. They ain't even going to win. They're not even going to win the AFC East, let alone get to the Super Bowl. I don't care who's quarterbacking them.
Mike makes a great point too, that Vic Fangio is now down in Miami, and he's going to give Rodgers fits like he did with his when he was here with the Bears. That's going to be an interesting matchup. Thanks for bringing that up, Mike. Okay, some other questions here, but Lisma wants to know, who do you like at the 3 tech, and what round grades do you have on him? So I'll make that as simple as possible for you, because I know you don't have your notes in front of you. Just name for me some 3 techs that you really like in this draft and you'd love to see the Bears target in whatever round.
Well, 2 that I don't think are going to be available to him in the second round are Adebawore from Northwestern and Keon White. And Keon White's projection, but I think he's he's like Henry Melton. Yeah, he was an end in college, but he's a 3 tech. Those guys, I don't think are going to be around unless they have a way of getting a higher 2. And I don't think it's out of the question yet that Carter is, wouldn't shock me if they took him. Wouldn't shock me if they didn't. It's they're playing it close to the vest. They're not going to, but it just, Ian said a couple things. Well, I got to know him a little better at the pro day. I got to know him a little better when I was here. But part of that is just you rehearse what you're going to say.
Yep.
You never say anything that you don't want out. And so I like to go back to the press conference that Poles had, the kind of impromptu press conference that Poles had at the league meetings, where he talked about, there's going to be a time when you can bring some risk into the locker room because we're going to have a strong locker room. I don't know if that time's now.
Yeah.
And to me, that was the key. And so, unless they feel he's not a risk,
right.
And there's people that have already said no, and there's probably teams that said yes. What I really hope is that somebody takes them before they pick. Then you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. And because in my mind, you got to get this pick right. Yes. And that pick has got a bust factor to it. Yeah, he may end up in the Hall of Fame, and he could be an all-time great. He might be one of the all-time busts too. And that part scares me. And if I'm Ryan Poles, this is my first round pick, because they only had 2s last year.
That's right.
Yeah, I want to make sure I got this one right.
Lucas Van Ness. Gillian wants to know, do you think Van Ness is a real possibility? He seems like an Eberflus player. Is 9 a reach for Van Ness? And I'll add this to the question. I just noticed the other day that Van Ness only had, 17, 18 reps, bench press reps. That's not a very impressive number.
That's a bad number. Where was that from? His pro day? I got all the stuff, but it's in it. I'd have to get it out of my
number
or
of
did
reps.
Or did you do it at the combine?
Let's see. I got an article here where I saw that the NFL draft. It's at the combine.
He did it. Okay, no, that's poor. That means he's benching. How many reps was it? 18. 18. Okay, that means he's like a 325-pound bench max. That sucks. So you should be a lot further than that at this time. If he was 21, 22, it wouldn't bother me. 18 bothers me, but 9 is way too rich for him anyway.
Yeah.
He's a 20 to 30 guy, and even if you're trading down 4, 5, 6 slots, that's too rich for him. Don't forget, people, he didn't start for whatever reason. He didn't start.
Yeah.
And he's got some good plays. There's no question. And he's a crazy man on the field. No question about that. But there's some things he lacks too. He's raw. And I didn't know the strength thing. And now that you hit me with that, I'd have a hard time pulling the trigger.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people, and rightfully so, say, they'd rather rely on the tape, like Swifty says, as opposed to a bench press number. Who knows?
Yeah, but a bench press number tells you what you've done in the weight room.
Good point. What
are you training? Bench is easy to increase. Okay. Strength coaches will tell you that. It's one of the easiest things to increase. But at the same time, what have you been doing that you're only got 18 and you've been in college 3 years?
Right. Yeah, it's concerning, but the tape also is important. So tough decision for whoever's considering a Lucas Van Ness.
Again, I can't emphasize this enough. We don't know the background.
Right.
And trust me. The people in Hallis Hall and every place else do. And so, and they're going to make their decisions based on that. So, if, there could be a report, and again, I'm throwing dart at the wall here, that, he's lackadaisical in the weight room.
Right.
Then because there's something missing if he's only doing 18 reps.
Indeed. Okay, let's we got some questions about Tooley Tuipulotu. I'm going to combine them with this one from Logan saying, let's say Tooley and Keon White are on board at number 53, and you guys have decided you're going to draft one of those two. Who's your pick? Assuming, of course, that we've got an offensive tackle out of the way.
Well, first of all, Keon White's not going to be there. He's one of 17 people that are invited to the draft.
First rounder.
Okay. He's in all likelihood going in the first round. Could he go, he's one of those 20 to 40 guys. Could he go a little bit later? Could he go at the top of the second? Yeah. But you're talking 20 something picks into the second at 53. I don't think there's any way in hell. I mean, he'd have to have something really wrong with him to fall that far, because the league does the research on who they invite, and they cut down the invites. So they don't want anybody sitting there after the first round.
It's not a good look. Yeah.
Right. So, and that poor guy, if I'm the guy and I don't get picked, I'm not even going in for day two. And I think last year there was only one guy that hadn't gotten picked yet or something, but might have been two, but they cut down, they keep cutting back on the number to make sure they get guys that are basically pretty sure going in the first round.
Yeah.
But I would take Keon over Tooley, but if, but it's Tooley against who? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Who else am I looking at? Because I really like Tooley. The only question I have is that he was listed at 290 in the fall, and he was like 268 at the combine. So what was he really during the fall? And that's easy to find out.
Yeah.
Those guys get weighed, they weigh in every week. You just get the information from the strength coach. What do you really play at?
Yeah.
And did he drop weight? And a lot of guys do that. They drop weight. The Notre Dame tight end played at 260, 265. He dropped down to below 250. So he'd have a better workout. Mayer. And so, but, you look at him last year on tape, damn well he was 260, 265 pounds. He was huge.
Jimmy Tony says that Tooley said he lost all that weight as part of the off-season workouts that he was having. And Foster wants to know if Tooley will make it down to the 50s and 60s. You think he'll go before the Bears pick at 53?
It's I would say no. I would have said yes. Wait a minute, I'm saying this wrong. I think he will be there because, a lot of the projections are that's about where he goes. The earlier, when I started watching him during the fall, I loved him. It wouldn't have shocked me if he went the bottom part of the first. But then, you don't have all the information. He's going to have a hard time. He dropped weight, I think, so he could run good to play the edge. But then he didn't think about his arm length. And I am with arm length. He's got short arms. And so, and they're plenty long enough to play inside. They're not plenty long enough to play outside and be a defensive end. Could you get away with him, and play him in a rotation? Yeah. But, just watching the way he plays, to me, he's a natural, in this defense, he's a natural 3. But I can think that all day. People at Hell's Hall have to think that.
Yeah. Yesterday, you tweeted out that based on what I've been hearing in various phone conversations that you've had, assuming there are no trades, you got the Panthers going with Young, Houston picking Tyree Wilson, and Arizona picking Paris Johnson. Is your thinking changed on that? Anything that you've heard over the last 20 hours or so?
No.
So Paris Johnson going number 3. So what does that do in terms of, could there be a run of offensive tackles that could help or hinder the Bears if they want to pick a tackle at 9 or trade down?
No, we already talked about that a little earlier. I think it hurts their ability to trade down a little bit because you got. Let's assume that all the tackles were there at 9. Well, it's pretty easy to trade down. We're still going to get one, and as long as you don't concentrate on one particular player and you say, I'm happy with any of these guys, then, you make the trade. But now you eliminate one. So now it's like, well, okay, how far can I go? Especially when there's teams sitting behind you that are rather, just a few slots back that could very well take tackles.
Yeah. Right.
So it's it'll be interesting. Here's, what I was told, and I got this call Sunday night, was that, Arizona's trying real hard to get out. But right now, reality is the quarterbacks aren't as hot as people thought the quarterbacks were going to be. And so what's the impetus to trade up to 3? And, who are you trading up for? Unless you're trading up for a quarterback, why are you trading up?
Yeah, right.
And so then and I think Arizona's been hit with that reality. They're still they still got, a day and a half to hopefully get something done. And what actually could help that is if Houston out of nowhere took the quarterback, because everything I've been hearing, and I first heard that over a month ago, that they were not, if Young went first, they weren't taking Stroud. And the only thing that could change, in the last 24 to 36 hours you've been hearing, well, might be the Kentucky kid, Will Levis. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's probably an agent trying to drive some talk going, because I know who the agent is. And so that's his MO. But I don't think there's any truth to it. I think that the decision's made is Bryce Young. But Houston could try to get a quarterback, but I think they'd try to use their second number 1, maybe even to move up. So they got a bunch of picks, but not at 2. They're going to take the guy they feel is the best defensive lineman or pass rusher. And from what I've been told, that's Tyree Wilson, not Anderson. And probably because he's, 6'6", 6'5.5", and he's real long, and he's more the prototype.
Yes, he
and
is.
So they're not just looking at today, they're looking at tomorrow. And if, I can't argue that point. I mean, that's because it's their decision. But then let's say Arizona by chance is able to move. Well, how far? They're not going to be moving that far.
Yeah.
So chances are they're still going to be before 9.
Yeah.
Unless the only way that doesn't happen is if Tennessee moves up.
Interesting.
Okay, and if Tennessee moved up to get a guy, then they'd be behind the Bears, and in that scenario, you could be looking at all the tackles at 9. So it's really, let's wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. Ceiling Fan is asking if you think Jalen Carter will be there at 9. And yesterday you tweeted out that you had a conversation with a high-level decision maker who said he would not touch Jalen Carter, and this is coming from a guy who is known to cut players some slack. That says something. So, do you think Carter will be there at 9? And do you should
I think it's 50-50. I was told by one person last Monday, not this week. So it was last Monday in the morning. I had a phone conversation that Detroit's out on Carter. There's no way they're taking him. They've made the decision. The only problem with that statement is Carter was sitting in Detroit's offices that day. So, that in-person visit can change things. He can sell himself, or he can put another nail in the coffin. And so I throw that one out. So that's a possibility. Then I've also heard that Seattle had soured on him. And the same person who told me the Paris Johnson thing said, well, I was talking to John Schneider, and he said he didn't totally outrule it. He was kind of vague, wasn't going to show his hand, but he didn't say, no, there's no way we're taking him. He left it very open-minded. But now in saying that, look at Seattle's history. I think they've traded out of their pick 8 out of the last 10 years or something in the first round.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
wow.
So, the chances of them trading is pretty damn good. But we'll see. I mean, you can't trade down unless somebody wants to trade up. So you got to have a partner. So it's just going to be interesting as hell. I don't think anybody really knows when you talk to people around the league. I just don't think they really know. And I'll tell you when we get off, I'll tell you who told me this stuff.
Okay.
But it's just, I think it could go a variety of ways. In my heart, I think there's going to be 2 corners gone, 3 quarterbacks, 2 edge players, and 1 offensive lineman, right? I don't know how many that is, right off the bat. And I'm praying to God they take that running back, even though I think it's a wasted pick at that point.
Exactly.
But man, would I love to see it happen.
Interesting. The what are you going to be doing during the first round of the draft? Are you working, or are you just sitting back with a beer? Tell me how you're going to spend the next 3-4 hours.
I don't drink much beer. It puts me to sleep now. And I usually go to bed at 9 o'clock, so I'm going to have to take a nap because I'm going to be up late 2 nights in a row.
Yeah, I hear you.
Because I usually get up early. That's why I go to bed early.
Exactly.
But, I'm going to be sitting, where I got the big screen?
Yes.
That's where I'm going to be sitting.
Big old screen, boy, size of a wall. All right, well, we will be back together on Friday at noon so that we can talk about the first round. And we will also be live here at the Barroom Network throughout every round. So we'll be covering every pick. And Greg and I we've got another show this weekend, I think.
So
Saturday.
we're going to do one Friday morning and Saturday morning.
Correct.
Reviewing the day before and say, okay,
all right,
here's what you could do. Now, I'll say this right now. Saturday morning, the Bears have the first pick in the 4th round. Correct. As of right now.
Okay.
They will get at least a half a dozen calls for that pick.
Wow.
That pick is one of the if you got a pick in the first few picks of the 4th round, they are extremely hot. Because people start looking at the board and they go, that guy's there. I want that guy. I want that guy. and and then you pick up the phone. Guaranteed they'll have at least a half a dozen calls. Happens every year.
Sam Rush recommends that you just kick back and smoke a doobie.
That would put me to sleep too. So, no, I got to watch. No, I'm going to tweet out a comment if I can on every pick.
Okay.
But what I'm not going to do, because it's not me, is I'm not going to, say Green Bay takes a certain player at now that they got the 13th pick. I'm not going to bash the pick. Mm-hmm. I know how hard these guys have worked to put their boards together.
Yes. And
they think they got them lined up right. Mm-hmm. I might disagree. If I disagree with the pick, I think I'll say, I think there are better guys there, but I get it. I know how the system works. So I when they make picks based on what they think they're getting, what they think they're buying.
Right. I'll tell you, it's a nail-biting time, but also one of the most fun times in all of sports. Before I let you go, I want to do a quick little exercise with you. I know you don't do mock drafts. I know you hate it. But
I did one.
That's right. You did one for Windy City Gridiron. You can find that there.
We took Jones.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let's take a look at Bucky Brooks' mock draft. I think I got that up on the screen. There it is. All right, so Bucky,
I'm on my phone here now, so I can't see.
Okay, I will tell you who he has picked. First overall pick to the Panthers, Bryce Young. Second pick, Tyree Wilson to the Texans. That makes a lot of sense. The Cardinals unable to trade out, pick Will Anderson. Obviously, he has not heard the Paris Johnson rumors, or he is ignoring them. The Colts pick C.J. Stroud. The Seahawks pick Christian Gonzalez. The Lions take Jalen Carter. I'm betting that happens. Devon Witherspoon is picked by the Raiders. So we've got two corners off the board. Lucas Van Ness at number 8. That's been a rumor for a long time. And now the Bears are
I love that. Well, then they're sitting looking at all the tackles.
Exactly. So that gives you an opportunity to trade down, right?
Right. If that's what reality is, then that's what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. And then, now you can trade, because you could probably go 4 or 5 slots, and you're still going to get one of the say you've got three of the 4 that you really like. They could like 4,
right? And
say, okay, I can get them, and that'll tell you how far back you can go.
Yeah, indeed. Well,
then, for all we know, they may already have a tentative deal. Say, assuming there's a certain player we want, and if he's gone, we're willing to move. Right. And then so just say, and we'll let you know tomorrow. And, could they have already talked preliminary parameters? Yeah. But you get it. It doesn't get serious until you call it into the league and say it's a done deal.
Well, I can't wait. I wish I could just go to sleep right now and wake up in time for the start of the draft. That's what I want more than anything.
I'm going to try to do my hour cardio tomorrow, but I'd probably have to quit after 30 minutes, being that my lungs are as bad as they are.
Yeah, you've been coughing a bit lately, so you got to take care of that.
Yeah.
Eric Sullivan says, great coverage. Greg is priceless. I couldn't agree with you more, Eric. He is indeed priceless. I will let you know that tonight we have a very special Mac and Reed show. Those guys are going to talk about the draft and share their thoughts. And then we're back here tomorrow afternoon with Crosstown Crosstalk. I know they usually talk baseball, but they will be talking some football as well. And then our draft coverage starts at 7 p.m. So for Greg Gabriel, I'm Aldo Gandia. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Stay on.